The beginning of the universe. I think the universe began when, out of nothing, a 0 Hz wave transformed into an existing wave. I understand the beginning of the universe like this at first. There was no vibration at all, a completely silent state of 0 Hz. Then, for some unknown reason, a wave arose for the very first time. Out of this state of nothingness, that wave began to vibrate, overlap, superpose, interfere, gather, and clump together, and in this process, clumps of waves started to form. As these wave clumps gradually stabilized, they became atomic nuclei, such as helium, hydrogen, and oxygen, and with electrons attaching to them, atoms were formed. In other words, all matter is the result of the primordial waves gathering and forming structures, and this accumulation and transformation of waves is, in my view, precisely the beginning of the universe. The universe we see now is a vast unfolding, created from the stillness of 0 Hz by those waves. 1. I understand the phenomenon of instantaneous movement of electrons inside atoms as follows. When an electron moves from one energy level to another, I do not see it as moving continuously along a path. Rather, I think that under the influence of some wave, the electron at its current position disappears, and at the same time, an electron appears at a different position. In this view, the electron does not travel through space in a continuous way, but instead jumps from one state to another governed by an underlying wave. The key point here is a deeper, more fundamental wave behind the electron itself. If we could fully understand the nature and laws of this wave, then in the far future, a technology for the teleportation of matter itself might become theoretically possible. For reference, this is not the currently accepted mainstream theory in science, but rather a philosophical and contemplative way of interpreting the electron, from the standpoint of waves. 2. The way I understand the Big Bang is that it is not just a simple big explosion, but the moment that opens the first chapter of the story of the universe. Before the Big Bang, there was a state with no waves at all, a state devoid of waves, and at some moment the first wave was born, sending ripples of energy spreading out. These waves collided, overlapped, and clumped together, and from them, the most basic forms of atoms and particles began to appear one by one. I think that was the true beginning of the universe. From waves, atoms were created from the gathering of atoms. All things such as stars and planets were born, and in that process, forces such as gravity and universal gravitation also began to reveal themselves. As the structures formed by waves grew larger and more complex, the universe expanded at the same time. Matter pulled on other matter, clumped together, and formed stars, galaxies, and eventually black holes. Seen this way, the universe is an immense process, in which the firstborn waves spread endlessly and then gather and disperse again and again. The Big Bang is the starting point of all these waves, and the universe we see now is one result created by those waves. From another point of view, one can also understand it as follows: before the Big Bang, from a single point in a state without waves, waves came into existence, and from there all things were created. 3. About the idea that light is both a wave and a particle, my thinking is as follows. The fundamental basis of the world is waves, and what we call particles or matter are all results of waves gathering together. Just as gentle ripples on water can overlap and build into a large wave, countless waves can overlap to form a single particle, and further, atoms and matter. Light is no exception. Light has the character of a wave that spreads through spacetime. But at the same time, when waves clump together, it behaves like particles of light, photons. So I understand light as both wave and particle, not as two different entities, but as two faces of a single phenomenon with the same root. For example, what difference might there be between when a human observes light, and when a monkey, a cat, a frog, a flower, or a tree observes it? 4. I understand the world like this. At the beginning, waves created atoms, and those atoms gathered to form all matters, so ultimately, the origin of all things can be seen as waves. Water exists in a fluid, flowing form, and iron exists in a hard, rigid form. I think this difference arises from the combination and arrangement of the waves inside them. Even a single atom is made of smaller combinations of waves, and those atoms gather to become oil, gold, silver, and cells. Then cells gather to form grass, trees, elephants, monkeys, and humans. Their outward appearances and properties are different, but at the deepest level they all share the same common origin: waves. Therefore, I believe that if we properly understand waves, we can understand the universe and how all things in the world come into being and change. Furthermore, by deeply grasping the principles of waves, we may be able to create what we desire, and in particular, gain a much deeper understanding of energy, which humanity longs for most.